Alright, this is going to be the patch 7.7 rundown. I briefly looked over the patch. There's not too much that has changed, but we'll just jump right into it and begin talking about some stuff. So first up is Amumu. Passive causes magic damage and starters deal extra 2 damage rather than reducing magic resist. W deals more damage and ticks faster. Passive Curse Touch. Amumu's basic attacks reduce, it got changed from reduce enemy magic resist by 15 to 25 scaling, to cause 15% of all magic damage dealt to the target to be dealt again as true damage. So the first thing that comes to mind with this is that your bandage toss won't get the ramp, never mind, the previous thing didn't get the ramp either. So the initial bandage toss won't get the ramp, but the future bandage tosses, I guess, will. W, Despair, 8 to 24 per second to 10 to 30 per second. Tick rate once per second, once per half second, half damage per tick. As salty as they come, Despair rushes Curse Touch on all enemies hit. That's really big. R, Curse of the Sad Mummy, applies Curse Touch to enemies after the damage is dealt. Curse of the Sad Money, Jesus Christ, that's Team Liquid. So this is all like nice and all, but I don't think that it's really enough to make Amumu come back, although there are like some junglers that I know do obviously care about Amumu in some regard. He was also picked last year in LCK, but I don't think this is enough to make him come back. However, the jungle meta is very stale right now, and sometimes when metas get stale, people will actually pick suboptimal champions because they basically approach it with like result-oriented logic, and so if they try it out in scrims a few times and it ends up doing well, then they'll bring it to the stage. And if someone else sees them bring it to the stage, they might think that there's more to it than meets the eye, and so they'll begin to practice it and stuff. We've seen this historically with a few junglers in the past, and something like that could end up happening with Amumu. However, this does definitely bolster him and put him a little bit above Sejuani and Skarner for sure now. And a lot of the cinderhulk junglers are in a really, really, really rough spot, so this definitely helps him out a lot. I guess one of the problems, though, that he has is that the keystones that he does have available for him are sort of like meh. Obviously, Cards of the Colossus is like good, and then Bond of Stone is like okay, but beyond that, he doesn't really have anything available, and still, it doesn't solve the problem that he's going to get gutted in the 1v1. Although Amumu obviously really likes the new jungle type stuff, like the Raptor camps, the Golem camps, whatever. Okay, Alistar. Passive heals all nearby allies. E cooldown reduced, empowered attack deals more damage. Okay, so passive Triumphant Roar heals the nearest ally to heals all nearby allies. Okay. E trample 16 to 14 seconds scaling to 12 to 10 seconds scaling. That's really big, getting 4 seconds off it for free. Empowered attack bonus damage was 220 at level 18, and now it's 310, so he gets a free, like, I don't even know what you would call that. This helps him, obviously, to some extent. It's virtually negligible late game, right? The only thing that's not negligible late game is the Triumphant Roar. The only thing that I can think of is the amount of trolley people that are going to play Alistar top lane, because obviously this bolsters Alistar top lane quite a lot. So with that being said, I mean, it's sort of whatever, but in a solo queue sense, the trolley people that like to do stuff like that, obviously they get a buff. In a competitive sense, obviously the only thing that is really great here is going to be the Triumphant Roar and the Trample and late game team fights, but not because of the damage, because the damage is negligible. Bard gains bonus meep damage at every chime tier. Damage only tiers removed. Other tiers restructured. Bard can now hold a maximum of 9 meeps. Okay. Passive, Traveler's Call. Your meeps now gain 15 damage every 5 chimes in addition to other chime bonuses. Chime bonuses restructured. All damage tiers have been removed, and every tier now grants improved utility. Bard can now hold a maximum of 9 meeps if he collects enough chimes. Tiers from 150 chimes, 104. Okay. So these Bard buffs are also really nice. I like the direction that Riot is going with some of the support changes. I don't like consider the Alistar change to be like gigantic, but obviously this Bard change is good, especially because Bard also got a little bit of love in a previous patch as well. Anything that can make him come back and, you know, slowly but surely phase out all those AP mages in the support role right now, I think is definitely welcome. In a solo queue setting, I don't know exactly how great this is, because like Chime Collection and other type of stuff is a little bit more difficult to pull off in solo queue than it is in competitive, right, because of coordination. Although I guess in some instances it's probably going to be easier to pull off like very early game in solo queue than it would be in competitive, because, you know, people actually have to abide by certain like just laning phases and how they're going to interact and play out. Okay. Camille, W no longer heals off non-champions. R duration reduced to earlier ranks. Tactical sweep. Camille no longer heals up to 10% of her maximum health when tactical sweep. Outer edge damages minions or monsters. This is enormous. I don't know if it brings her in line. It's definitely going to potentially free her up, at least in Korea, as a ban, like a must ban, because she has remained that way for the majority of the season. So I think that this is really nice. However, she's still going to be a good top lane champion. R, the Hextech Ultimatum, 2.5, 3.25, 4 seconds. Very rarely is the 1.5 seconds ever really going to matter that much. Obviously, there's going to be some instances in which, you know, a gank fucking fails or something ends up occurring that wouldn't have occurred with that extra 1.5 seconds. But for the most part, when Camille casts the Hextech Ultimatum, it's either being used defensively, in which case it's used to disengage or avoid some sort of an attack. It's not actually being used for the containment. In late game, she's still going to have the 4 seconds, so it doesn't matter anyway. The only thing that you could argue is that around level 11, until she has the 4, that does impact her team fighting a little bit by those 0.75 seconds, but I don't think that's really the end of the world because of the way that Camille, again, interacts in team fights. And because of how her team normally follows up. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit noticeable. All that I really think this does is it brings her from being like an S plus or an S tier to like an S or S minus at the end of the day. Galio, passive damage down, Q missile ratio up, tornado zone damage down. We're quite happy with how Galio landed on Summoner's Rift, and we're happy with how well he soaks damage and protects teammates with dedicated tank builds. Shouldn't pack a punch without investing in ability power. Why not? That's been the motto for a lot of tanks. Damage, 15 to 100 scaling to 12 to 80 scaling. That is really fucking big. So Galio loses anywhere from like 60... Loses anywhere from like 80 to 160 damage in a late game team fight just off of his passive. Q, Winds of War. Initial Wind Blast ratio, 0.6 ability power to 0.75 ability power, okay? Tornado zone damage, 9% of the target's max health, 6%. That's fucking brutal. Holy shit. These numbers are big because of the way that Galio itemizes, because Galio, he has some really weird itemization paths, and normally you only want to pick him into very key spots, and even when you pick him into those key spots, he has a very long windup. And so losing stuff like this, it's not going to entirely break him, especially not in the mid game, but it's definitely going to be noticeable late game, and it's going to take away from a lot of his potential utility. So I don't really like these changes, because actually I thought Galio needed a little bit more help in other areas. I do think that he needed nerfs in others. Like, for instance, I think that he needed a little bit more base MS, and I thought that, the E could probably get hit a little bit, and I thought that the passive could actually go up so that it made it so that you could have to hit all 3, but these changes are very interesting, to say the least, because it targets his late game a lot more than I think that they were anticipating. Or maybe they were anticipating it. Graves, True Grit no longer grants magic resistance. E, Quick Draw. Cowboys hit magic. True Grit no longer grants 5, 7.5, or 5 to 15 magic resistance per stack, scaling, 120 magic resistant max stack. So the thing is that in a late game team fight, you're probably going to have, at max, 4 stacks. So you're going to be missing 60 MR, which that is kind of big in like a super late game team fight. Missing 60 MR is quite big, but when you think about it gold-wise, it's not going to completely shatter Graves. I think in early game ganks too, like levels 4, 5, 6, 7, Graves is only really going to be missing 10 MR. 10 MR is not like super bad, and I don't think that it's really going to impact him at all. The only thing that this actually does change, though, is it makes it easier for Elise to go up against him a little bit. She's going to get an inherent buff, and also if we talk about like Amumu earlier on, this is definitely going to help there. This does help. This does hurt Graves though against like certain like double AP compositions like Rumble Syndra or something that's very popular. And so it's noticeable, but this doesn't move him from his god tier status. This isn't what makes Graves god tier. So both in solo queue, this is fucking negligible because let's be honest, no one's actually taking into account like stacking their stacks during a team fight or like what that's gonna mean for a team fight. In competitive, it's going to be virtually negligible in the very early ganks. In the mid-game team fights, like around Drakes and stuff, around like 20 minutes, 22, 23 minutes, it's going to be a little bit noticeable. Late game, I don't think that it's actually that noticeable, unless it depends on the team composition again. If there's like a Rumble and a Syndra inside of the top, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit brutal. Jarvan IV, golden ages 50 to 170 to 65 to 165, so he loses a little bit of the base shield later on, but he gains more early. I kind of like that. Bonus shield 20 to 100 per enemy champion hit, 2 to 4% of Jarvan IV's maximum health per champion hit. Okay, so this is really big. Because Jarvan is likely going to go cinderhulk, and Jarvan's likely to have 4,000 or like 5,000 HP. So this is all really nice, to be completely honest. This is really, really nice. Is it enough to make him come back? I don't think so, no. I don't think this is enough to make him come back, unless he gets the same exact thing as the Amumu treatment. I think that Jarvan needs a little bit more than just this in order to make him come back. Wait, hold on, let me think. It's so thin. Maybe in a very, very, very specific situation where certain junglers are banned and certain teams are, like, the composition's being skewed, maybe he can come back. That's for competitive. For solo queue, obviously, any buff helps, but why would you play Jarvan in solo queue? Okay, Jinx. E cooldown reduced at later ranks. Wow, I'm sure that is exactly what is keeping Jinx out of the meta. I'm sure that, you know, that 6 seconds on those flame chompers at max rank is really what's fucking holding her back. What? Kassadin, W attack damage to no longer cancel against targets that leave its range. E cooldown reduce, R ratio increase. So Nether Blade, that's a nice little buff. Force Pulse 6 to 5 seconds. Not the end of the world, but obviously, you know, we'll take what we can get. R Rift Walk, this is virtually negligible. Kassadin gets an extra like 40 to 50 damage, like in his Rift Walk. That doesn't do anything. It legitimately does nothing. It just does nothing. It helps, but it just doesn't do anything. Like, because when you factor in like magic resistance, you're barely getting anything. Like, if they did like 0.3 ability power here, and then they changed something to his like stack, and they gave him a little bit more there too, that could be something. But they didn't do that. So Kassadin's still gonna remain Kassadin for now. He'll come back someday though. Katarina, E cooldown increased to early ranks, 10 to 8 scaling to 14 to 8 scaling. This really impacts solo queue and competitive, but it's not the end of the world. Obviously, really good Katarinas are still going to be able to play around this. The only problem is they're just going to have to be a little bit more intelligent, but it definitely does take away from some of her early game kill potential. That's pretty much it. Lux. This is one of the ones that I'm very excited to see, or I'm curious what it will mean. R refunds part of its cooldown when it kills a champion. So the thing about Lux is you can now run the 44 or 45% CDR, right? And then with Final Spark, this really changes late game team fights. And the thing that this also does is it really makes Lux potentially very good on red side. When you think about her ability to now like deny Baron, but then also her ability to zone out of Dragon because of like the angles that she can hit, but then also because of the safety of her blue buff and what it means for her to be able to roam down to bottom because of the locations in which she can place her pink ward. So red side Lux got an enormous mega fucking buff off of this. Lux as a whole though obviously gets a buff off the R final spark. I'm excited for what this might mean for red side in competitive, but for solo queue it's like it's obviously really, really great in solo queue. Like there's absolutely no way that you cannot be happy about this in solo queue. So this is interesting. Okay, Nunu. Passive causes Nunu's ability to cast at 1 rank higher. Nunu has leveled it. Base health and base health regen down. Okay, base health, she loses about 23. Base health regen 8.4 per 5 to 7 per 5. Okay, that's not the end of the world either. So he's not really losing anything there. He's losing like half a potion, by his first recall or something. Whatever. Updated passive visionary. I can go beyond. So rank 6. All right, so he's bad. Like, I'm sure that there's going to be people on like Reddit or something that complain about this. He's just bad. I don't need to read this for you guys to know that he's bad. There are so many other junglers that do so many things better than Nunu right now. He's almost always going to just be a worse version of Ivern, and he's also semi-reliant on other champions existing inside of the meta. The problem is that he can't keep up with a lot of the current junglers, and because of the jungle respawn timers, but also because of the way that the jungle was changed, like the thing that he used to be able to do, right, is like you can't go into raptor camp and eat the big raptor, which is obviously what you want to do, because everyone knows that the smaller raptors are obviously going to be more valuable. You can't go into the big golem thing and eat the golem because it's just a little bit more obnoxious. So, like, the counter jungling got hit in so many different ways. Other stuff, like with the meta and changes to itemization and stuff, got hit in so many different ways. What the fuck do you even go on him as a fucking keystone? I guess Bond of Stone, but that feels terrible. He's just in a really bad spot. I feel bad for him. Rengar, Q base damage reduced at later ranks. So this is all actually like fine. I don't know why they keep nerfing him. Like, someone just needs to fucking tell NA and EU that like he's actually still good. I guess this is actually why they keep nerfing him. Maybe it's because he is still good, but these type of changes don't take away from why he's still good. He's still like an S- tier jungler, but he's not up there anymore with Graves and Elise. And because of the nerfs that keep coming to junglers and stuff, obviously worse junglers will begin to rise up just because there's no one else remaining. Rumble, E-charge time increased 5 to 6 seconds. That's obviously big. It's going to be noticeable. It's not the end of the world, though. Shaco, passive attack damage scaling down, Q base damage removed, cooldown increased, Q ability power ratio moved to passive. Okay, so passive backstab 0.4 ability power is now added here. So they took the Q deceive and they added it to backstab. Okay. Now he only gets 1.3 total attack damage instead of 1.45 total attack damage. No longer has 20 to 80 base damage on the deceive, and they upped its cooldown, which doesn't make any fucking sense, like, whatsoever. I don't even know like what to say about this. So they say Shaco's mini update brought him to the fore as one of the most prominent junglers in solo queue. What? With some cameos and pro play to boot, he's currently dealing a frustrating amount of damage in the instant he comes out of invisibility, considering most of it's impossible to avoid, especially from you. No, it's not. AD Shaco, we're bringing his surprise burst down to a more reasonable level. He is at a reasonable, like, Shaco's not at a point where he's that oppressive. Like, he has so many other problems that he can't work around, and when you take away his damage, which is the only thing that he actually relies on, I don't know where the fuck this comes from. This just feels like, like, I don't know. I want to make a comment right now, but I kind of don't, but, like, fuck. This just, like, feels bad. Like, can you get some wards? Like, it's not that hard to really play around him. It's very easy. You count his CS. He can't do certain camps because he takes too much damage and it's too time inefficient. And it's very easy to play around him. because he no longer has that completely disgusting fucking itemization that he used to have, where he got like Gunblade and stuff and he just insta-gived you. It's actually not like that. Like, anyone that's competent is going to be able to actually survive against Shaco Burst, okay? That's why most of the Shaco main players, with the exception of that like one in NA or something, still complain to this day about Shaco. Like, I'm talking about the Chinese and the Korean Shacos. So, I don't know. This just feels really ugly. This is, like, unnecessary. Like, either rework the champion or don't, but don't fucking throw this garbage at this. Syndra, bug fixes. R Unleash Power. Unleash Power cooldown no longer... Okay, these are just bug fixes. Okay, that's nice. Q, or Talon. Q damage reduced at lower ranks. 80 to 160 scaling to 60 to 160 scaling. This is obviously nice. During laning phase, I guess you're almost going to get like a little bit over half a potion now against Talon for free, which is really, really nice. Definitely takes away from some of his early solo kill potential, levels 1 through 4. And it does make things obviously feel a little bit better to play around. However, at rank 4, it's virtually negligible. Volibear. R can bounce to twice as many enemies. Uh-oh, I thought we had to nerf Volibear. I thought we had to nerf him. Maximum bounces, 4 to 8. Okay, there's now a small delay between bounces. Okay. Karma Splash Art updates, no one really cares. Raptors, more HP, less damage, that's interesting. Base attack damage, 16 to 13.33. Health, 350 to 612.5 at levels 1 through 10 to 400 to 680. This hurts a lot of junglers, and it helps a lot of other junglers. This, for instance... it's hard to say. This helps and hurts Graves. It helps Evelyn. It's going to hurt champions like Kha'Zix. It's going to hurt other like abstract junglers that don't get picked that often. But some of the cinderhulk junglers obviously will like this a little bit. Lifestyle interactions, okay. Magic damage shield UI, okay. Rotating game modes, lead client update, okay, great. Highlight update. Okay, cool. Yep. All right. Upcoming skin. Oh, God, no. All right. Thank you for joining me for patch 7.7. Basically, at the end of this, maybe Amumu comes in. Maybe Amumu comes in. He can't. It's so thin. Like, he can and he can't. It's so thin. He's never going to be a versus all. Just fundamentally, he cannot be a versus all. Okay? Alistar got buffed a little bit. Bard probably going to eventually, slowly but gradually, make his way back to being one of the top tier supports. If not here, then probably somewhere in the future. Camille is still fine. Galio is sort of like, feel a little bit bad about these. Graves is still god tier. Jarvan, these are really nice buffs, and he can be picked extremely situationally. Solo queue doesn't matter. Jinx is still a fucking joke. Like, please just do something for her. Or then again, she's also a little bit of a byproduct of itemization as well. And certain other champions existing inside of the meta. Oh my god, I just actually like scratched myself really hard and now I'm bleeding. Fuck. Kassadin. Kassadin is still just going to be Kassadin. He's going to be used in very, very, very specific counter matchups, and obviously he'll take what he can get with these buffs. Katarina, no one cares. Lux is the most interesting thing, most notably red side Lux. And competitive, solo queue Lux, no one even cares because they can't even land their E's. Nunu, no one cares. Rengar, obviously it's a nerf for solo queue, doesn't really touch competitive. This is not going to really affect how Rengar interacts with anything. Rengar's still going to be a great champion. Rumble, this is fine. Shaco, this is one of the biggest joke nerfs I've ever fucking seen. Syndra, nice bug fixes. Talon, this is like sort of okay, but Talon is like a very, very niche pick. And he's not like super, super good. As people were thinking, but he's definitely like an A+, and this definitely removes some of his potency that he once had. Volibear, well, I mean, I guess someone just decided that they needed to start playing it, you know? If you can't beat him, join him. Alright, so that's it for the rundown